Welcome to the Thought Leadership Series featuring interviews from some of the best minds in the industry. Today's special guest is popular platform speaker and best-selling author Dave Anderson. I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and talk show host. In this segment, we're talking about why yesterday's sales psychology doesn't work today. We're talking about the dialogue between advisors and prospects and how constant self-justification is killing sales. It's all from Dave's book, Non-Convincing Language. Well, Dave, let's talk about this because this is a major problem out here. You know, we all think we know what we're doing. We took a few sales courses and it isn't working. And we figured that some of the old thinking is now being replaced with some new ideas, and you came up with this whole idea called non-convincing language. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and tell us what's going on and how did you even come to this?
Well, thanks, Steve. David Anderson from Pensacola, Florida, business owner, have a financial firm and a software company that I actually do training and sales of financial advisors as well. This non-convincing language thing started in 2007, actually from a study group. You know, we're all struggling in the business of convincing and wanting people to do what we want to sell. And a sales battle, we call it verbal jousting. But there was a comment made. It said, Dave, you want to change your career, get out of the convincing business, get in the sorting business and sort fast. I started pondering that in 2007, and for 8 years now, I've taken that and worked on it and developed a communication that's very simplistic, that's philosophical, that transforms the way we communicate with all people, and it really helps in sales.
No, you made a difference there. You made a distinction because usually people say this is a sales technique. You actually using the words, this is a sales philosophy.
Exactly. The problem I feel with techniques is we learn them all the time. We go to a conference, we read a book, and we go, wow, that's great. But then we get back to our offices and we go right back to our same mode of operandi. We don't use it. Mm-hmm. And so I think techniques are great. I don't want to criticize them in any way, but they're very short-lived, and I don't see them implemented. All you have to do is listen to people, and you'll see they're not.
Well, why don't you walk us through a little bit of this and the problem and show us why we have to go down this road?
Well, what we're going to explore on your show is 4 pillars we'll get to and explain each one of these things. That there's just 4. You take these 4 things and philosophically embed them in your life, and it'll change a lot. So here's the problem. Anytime we get into sales or we want to do something or influence somebody, this is the issue. We want to convince, hey, do it my way. This doesn't work. So we want to transform that and say this, get out of the convincing business.
So persuasion isn't the way to go anymore.
It is not. Now, we're going to talk a lot about influence during the show, and we'll get to a lot of aspects about that. But convincing is a battle. An argument is convincing. You want to convince somebody you're right, and they want to convince they're right. So this is horrible. We want to get rid of this. And this is why we do it. I didn't come up with this. I'm no great psychiatrist or anything, but Maslow came up with this hierarchy of needs. And you see at the top here, self-actualization, self-esteem. We want to be validated. We want to be meaningful. We want to have a purpose, and we're constantly trying to justify that. So this is the psychological issue. And if we would just learn this.
You're talking about the advisor starving for validation, right?
And the consumer, and the client, and your wife, and your kid. So human nature, right? We get up, we're born out of the womb wanting and needing, all about us, right? Mine, mine, mine. And we never let that go in a capitalistic society. And if we just learn this right here, starvation for validation, every person you interact with is starving to be validated. And so are you. So people say, oh, Dave, I'm not. Yes, you are. You're human. We all want to be validated. So if you know that, you're at a huge advantage now. Why don't you help somebody get validated? That takes listening and all kinds of things that we'll get into during the show.
It seems like we just want to pontificate, show everybody how much knowledge we have, and that's not the game.
No, I call that, we have a tendency to want to puff up our peacock feathers, right? Because I know in sales, and I know there's a lot of guys out there too as well, that we get in a room, we have little insecurities, we learn a lot, then we go vomit all over somebody our knowledge, and we walk out of there feeling really proud, like, well, look at me, I did good, and we sold nothing. So, but that's the need for validation. So what happens is when we get in a room of talking to people, anytime we're talking about ourselves, we're not talking about them. And trust me, when they come in our offices or any interaction you have with people, they don't give a rat's patootie about you. They care about themselves. And so why don't we talk about them and take sincere interest in them? So this is a problem. This is a huge problem, and everybody knows it. And then we speak in a way because we want to feel secure, or I've heard this a lot, Dave, I want to come from a position of strength or authority. So we give all this knowledge, and our client has clutter in their head, and how do they make a decision looking at something like that?
And we're using industrial acronyms and speak that's only germane to our business, and we're trying to communicate really important things on finance. It's a mistake.
Well, yeah, we want to get in this area of simplifying. And this is a great quote Churchill said about Ramsay MacDonald. He has the gift of compressing the largest number of words in the smallest amount of thought.
Wow.
Guilty. I've done that a million times. I'm trying to learn how not to be guilty of this so people can understand me better. Because the result of all this, our communication ends up with that kind of result. That's not the result we want. We want people to be able to have an open dialogue with one another, share ideas, and not have any stress or pressure, not on you and not on them. So let's remove the pressure, what we call the wall of communication, so we have open dialogue and we can move forward easier.
Well, for more information on how you can divest yourself from old sales behaviors and how doing this can expand your practice, just click on the landing page address in the video description. We'll be right back with more from Dave Anderson.
This is your website. Few people visit, and if it isn't attracting new visitors, it's not doing its job. Now you can drive more visitors to your website through dynamic content and email marketing with CreativeOne's Social Media Elite. Capture quality leads faster and easier. Engage your visitors with informative articles and videos to boost your online credibility. Plus, stay connected with existing clients and earn more referrals. All content is customized for you. It's time to introduce your website to the world. Call your CreativeOne sales team at 800-992-2642 or visit us online at creativeone.com.
In this segment, we're talking about why yesterday's sales psychology doesn't work today. And we're talking about the new philosophy of sales and not the tired techniques of the past. All from Dave's book on non-convincing language. Well, Dave, let's talk a little bit about, people say, okay, you told us in the first segment, here's our problem. I think everybody watching, most advisors are going to be own up to it. Yes, it's not working. Walk us through, what's going on when we're looking at why does this not work? And what do we want to show as kind of maybe our first kind of salvo into the solution?
Okay, very good. The why it doesn't work is we talked about before, we have this constant self-justification, this constant need to validate. And the why do something different is because we want to be influential. We want, especially in sales, we want to make the right kind of sales, right? We don't want to manipulate, but we do want to influence to things that matter. So the purpose of changing language, and the purpose I did it and been on this journey because I knew I could be better, is I want to improve my prospecting and not be a problem. I want to increase my closing rate, seeing more of the right kind of people. And of course, we all want to increase our production. And the ultimate goal really of changing the way we communicate is why don't we stretch the goal out to say, make selling the easiest thing I've ever done instead of selling being such a burden. So we don't want to do that, okay? So what this is, we talked about a little bit, is a philosophy rather than a technique. We found all these techniques are short-lived. We learn a step of objection handling. You say this, I say this back. It's a tit for tat type of thing. Doesn't work. I have to have a way to self-correct myself, and you have to have a way to self-correct yourself. We're all different, males, females, different personality styles. Techniques don't fit all styles, but a philosophy does. So we don't want this to be short-lived. We're going to explore the psychology of ego and pride, which is a big deal in our business, as you know. So where does this apply? A lot of people think, well, non-convincing language, especially since we're talking in the financial arena, it's all about selling. Well, look, you're always selling yourself. So it's not just in the selling world, whether you're in the financial business, the car business, or vacuum cleaner business, doesn't matter. It also works in the workplace between workers, co-workers, staff, etc. And in marriages. What about marriages? We communicate in our marriages all the time, and we have a huge divorce rate because we're not paying attention to the way we communicate. And little things kill a marriage. We're tired of that. Parents and children dialogue. I do a lot of work in my church with marriages and communication with parent-child. And then, of course, being a believer, sharing my faith is something I'm commanded to do. And I want to learn how can I share my faith easier to have conversations with other people without the stress or pressure for myself of sharing faith and for them to be burdened with a faith conversation.
So this has a really broad application.
Well, if you open your mouth and talk, yes.
Okay, well we're there now.
So we all do. And what happens a lot of time in communication is what we do is, and no matter what it is, whether it's in sales or sometimes just dialogue, we all have a life, a lot of information. And since we're trying to validate, we're trying to vomit and spew, and sorry for the words, but that's the best expression I can give you, this information. Well, that's hard to receive. What we don't do is listen to people, understand them better, and give them the right information. Everybody knows the tip of the iceberg. So sometimes the tip is enough.
Are advisors doing this whole thing not only in what I see on the surface, but they're trying to unload everything that's in the inside of them?
Well, there might be a little speck up here that client needs to hear, and they're telling them all this that they didn't want to hear or even ask for. And they wonder, why didn't this move forward? So, well, you didn't pull what I call pull the right arrow out of your quiver of information. Of a lot of arrows, pull the right one. So sometimes too much is just too much. Very quick example. What if we communicate the financial world this way? I get your data, put it on a model, and say, this is what you want. Right? Takes more money to maintain your standard of living. We all know that. Very simple, very relatable. Most people that we've seen in over 2,000 cases model, their plans don't work. What they are doing falls off of what they want. Well, how easy is that to understand? Green is what you want. Red is what you got. Are you happy or sad? And what we have to do working together is get this thing balanced out so the red line stays covered on the green line. Why don't we talk that simply, in retirement planning or in the financial business at all? We get too complicated, right? The big iceberg.
Maybe we think we have to push this sophistication issue up.
That's the insecurity of validation, starvation for validation. I got to look important. I got to have authority. I have to have strength. Here's how we want conversations to end up. In the previous segment, we showed another baby. He wasn't so happy. We want to be able to dialogue with people and have fun doing it to where they enjoy the conversation, we enjoy it, and we're doing productive things. Discernment, listening, understanding. We'll get more of that as we press along.
Dave, before we close the segment, I want to ask you, though, real quick, when you came to this, was this how revelatory was this? I mean, was this a big revolution in your mindset? You're taking everything we ever learned, pushing it aside, and actually introducing this whole idea, this philosophy. That's
a great question, Steve. Says I've read a ton. I'm a big reader. I read tons and tons of books and talk about them all the time. So I've read all kinds of books on psychology, sales, etc., and they're good. So I don't have any criticism of them. But I couldn't package it together to use every day because I would forget. I can't remember everything. And so as I develop these pillars that we'll get into, there's only 4 of them. And I tell you what, I've been talking about this stuff for 8 years now, hundreds and hundreds of hours. These 4 pillars cover it. I don't need a 5th one.
Well, for more information on how you can use non-convincing language to help build out your business, just click on the landing page address in the video description. And for more information on our shows, seminars, workshops, just follow us on social media and visit our website. I'm Steve Savant. We'll see you next time on the Thought Leadership Series. And remember, keep thinking outside the box.